are awesome weapons, but they're also very fragile, and it's our responsibility as temporary owners to prevent them damaged. I'm going to go quickly because I'm going to be out of here in 5 minutes. So 10. I'll take questions when I'm done if there's time left. If you have a pertinent question while I'm talking, by all means. When you're carrying a Japanese sword, always make sure that the handle is higher than the scabbard. Otherwise, you can fall. When you have a Japanese sword, if the sword is not out of the koshirai, if it's not a bare blade, make sure that the pin is through the hole in the handle and the hole in the makumi. Without the pin, if I were to do this, there's nothing holding the blade in the handle. The blade can go charging down inside the scabbard and shatter its point at the bottom. This pin is very important. It's always a good idea to have a sword bag on, because without the sword bag, if the fit of the habaki isn't tight, the habaki being the collar in here that forms a tight fit in the mouth, or if the humidity changes and the scabbard expands a little bit, if you're not careful, it can fall out. The bag also keeps it clean. Before I get into the rest of the normal etiquette, I want to show you a neat little trick. Very often, you'll find a scabbard that's starting to split at the mouth. That's very common, or maybe even all the way down. And you'll see swords in the showroom, people wrap tape around it. And that discolors the scabbard, and if it's a lacquered scabbard, the tape, when you take it off, pulls off the lacquer sometimes. This is a really cool trick. You start about here. If you want it to end up there, you start about here, because the saya, the scabbard, gets larger as you approach the handle. You wrap a piece of clean paper around it tight, and then you wrap some masking tape around the paper, and it's not very tight there, but you slide it up. It makes a very nice tight band around the scabbard, but it's reversible, and it will not discolor the scabbard. So, passing a Japanese sword when it isn't mounted, or when it is mounted, when it's in the mounts, passing it from one person to another. Can you stand up, please? To pass a blade in the mounts, you hold the blade in two hands, horizontal, with the cutting edge towards yourself. Cutting edge towards yourself is universal in passing a blade. It's good manners, and it's also common sense. You're responsible for the pass. If somebody's going to get cut, it's you. You accept it with both hands, and you nod your head, or you let me know you've got it. And then you pass it back to me. Perfect. No problem. Hold on. When you take the sword out of the scabbard, the cutting edge is always towards the ceiling. You do not take the sword out of the scabbard on its side or on its edge, because doing this, you're cutting the scabbard and dulling the blade. It's riding on the back, the moving this way. If it's shirasaya, there's no tsuba. Break the seal by placing your hands on either side of the joint and squeeze it. Don't just go like here and try to pull, because some of the habaki form a very tight fit, and you'll end up jerking it out. And in that middle of that jerk, you can be chipping the cutting edge. If it has a tsuba, you're going to have to do something like this. Go easy for the first inch. Pull it out in a continuous, smooth motion. Do not stop halfway in and out. You'll see people doing this at the sword show. Bad manners. You can chip the cutting edge, you can scratch the sword, you can damage the saya. To pass a blade with just the suka, you hold it at the bottom of the handle, the suka, securely, with the cutting edge facing yourself, blade's vertical. You grab the blade above my hand, let me know you got it, and then you can pass it back to me. Pay attention to what's above you. I've seen swords stuck into ceilings. It's very easy to break them aside. To take the blade out of the suka, you have to remove the makumi. And there's a variety of ways of doing that. A lot of us at sword shows carry Mikugi and feet on a string. You've seen the brass ones, the hammers. I like to do the Mikugi, the martial art with the knuckle. That won't do any damage, other than to your knuckle. If you're using something mechanical and we're dealing with even sheer side, be careful. You have to decide which is the smaller end of the Mikugi and you push it. You can reverse this if you're left-handed. I'm right-handed, so here's how I do it. You hold the suka at the bottom. You don't want to hold it at the top because you're squeezing it and you're working against yourself. Hold it at the bottom in your left hand with the blade angled back over your right shoulder. Pay attention to what's up there. And with the fist of your right hand, you tap. Now, every sword is different and every time of year is different because of changing humidity. So your first tap is a light one because some swords are very loose. And if you hit it really hard, the blade will go flying. Really loose. And you increase the pressure, of course, until you start walking the sword out of the hand. And when you get to this point where it's loose and you can get behind the habaki and grab it, you do so. Now, if you try that and you find that it's still really hard to do, go back and tap your hand again. Get it a little bit looser. You don't want to push really hard on the habaki because that will force the habaki up on the blade and it can chip the blade right at the notch. If the blade is mounted with the suba, you don't want to be pushing on the suba because that can do the same thing. It forces the habaki. If it's a small blade, a tanto, it can have a very short nakigo. You have to be very careful that you don't go too far because it can fall. To pass a blade that has no mounts, once again, hold it at the bottom of the nakigo. You let me know you've got it, and then you return it to me. You never touch the polished portion of the blade. It's okay to touch the corroded portion of the nakigo, but never the polish. There's acid and the moisture in your fingers, and if you touch it and you don't clean it, you will have a fingerprint on your blade. Polishes are very expensive if they're done properly, and very, very fragile things. You'll see people in the sword room touching because the blades aren't in polish. You'll see Japanese dealers doing it. You'll see silverbacks doing it. I can't stop everybody from doing silly things. It's bad manners to touch the polished portion. It's disrespectful to touch the polished portion of the Japanese sword. And I'm kind of a hard case about this. I wish everybody was. Here's where you handle a bare Japanese sword. When you look at a sword pointed at the light, pay attention to what's around you, especially in a sword show where there's so many people. Don't be going like this. Watch what's up above you. Flip the sword back together. If it had suba and seppa, you would place those back on the blade. And when I take a mounted sword apart, I always, when I take the suba and the seppa off, I always set them down right side up, so that when I put them back on, I pick them up and I know which way they fit. Because often the seppa are such a nice tight fit that if it fits this way, it won't fit that way. I slide them back on, and then you grab the suka, and of course the habaki has to go back on if you've taken the habaki off. Holding the blade vertically, you lower it in. With the suka grasped in my left hand, I then tap on the bottom of the suka with my right hand until I hear it seat. And you can also look through the hole of the mikugi on it. Place your mikugi back in. Then put the sword back in place. I'm starting with the saya, the scabbard angled downward, the blade angled upward. I rest the very end of the mune, the back of the sword, in the mouth of the saya. I bring them in, you can feel when they meet. And then you slide it in one smooth, continuous motion, not stopping halfway. If the sword is in polish, you have to be careful with your